All right, so I'm told we are live on the tube. Today, we're going to talk about the rules for Pesach. If I can get things to work properly, here we go. I do this every year. I try to do it before Pesach hits. Tomorrow night, this this is Saturday, of course. We're doing our Shabbat service here. So tomorrow night is the very first day of the year, according to God Almighty. You know, the one that said, "Let there be," and everything that is seen and unseen was created by Him. That God said that tomorrow is the first day of the year. So we go with what he says. We don't care what Jewish customs have become. We don't care what American customs are. We only care that the creator of the universe said that tomorrow was the first day of the year. So it actually starts at sundown, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. Some things in the Bible, the day starts at sundown, and some things not so much. Got to be careful when you're looking at that sort of thing. So, to avoid confusion, and it may even be bringing confusion, I don't know. But uh, in the Hebrew language, there are different things that use the same word. If I want to say Jews in plural, Judaism, Jewish, and four or five others, it's the same Hebrew word every single time. Yehudim, or yeah. Um, so it confuses people when in Hebrew when they're speaking of the land of Egypt, they say Mitz Orayim, and when they speak of the Egyptian people, they say Mitz Orayim. Our language doesn't work that way. So what I'm done here is when the word should be thought of as Egypt, I'm going to say meets Raima. And when it means Egyptian, I'm going to say meets Rayim. I hope that's okay with you guys because technically it's the same word. The place and the people, it's the same word in Hebrew. So I'm going to give you two different words. I don't want to use the English words because I've never understood that kind of replacement theology. Yes, if you're calling Yeshua Jesus, you are a follower of replacement theology. If you call the disciple Kepha, if you call him Peter, if you call Shaul Paul, and Levi Matthew, or Moshe Moses, you are heavily involved in replacement theology. You literally are pushing forward the belief that what God gave us is not good enough. We, the people, have found a better way. That song that Jesus, there's just something about that name. Yeah, it's not the name of the Savior. That's the something. There was no one on planet Earth at the time of the New Testament named Jesus. Not one human being. There was no man named Jesus who was born of a virgin, healed the sick, died on a cross, and rose from the dead. That word, that letter J, for one thing, is not in the Hebrew language. It wasn't then, it isn't now. So there was no guy named Jesus, period. And the something about that name is that it was not the name of the man who was born of a virgin, who did go around healing everybody, who did reconcile his people to himself. In other words, God in human flesh, Yeshua, not Jesus. Anyway, let's start the new year out right. That's what I'm thinking. All right, so we'll start off with what do we do about the celebration? How do we celebrate the biblical New Year? The first day of the month of Aviv is the actual biblical New Year, according to Exodus chapter 12, verse 2. This is the month of the anniversary of the month and day that God led the children of Yisrael, the children of Israel, not the Christians, not the Catholics, not the Muslims, but the children of Israel, as they're called today. They were led out of Mitzrayim. Remember, I'm saying that for Egypt. Aviv, the Hebrew word Aviv, comes from the root Av, though others say otherwise. That makes no sense. What their argument makes no sense. It comes from Av, which means father. More specifically, in Hebrew, the father is something is its origin. Thus, Aviv is the father or origin of our year. Hopefully that makes it a little bit more clear. Aviv marks the beginning of our journey to freedom, Torah observance, and forgiveness. Forgiveness, biblically speaking, is not what the church taught you. Forgiveness is not what the synagogue taught you. Biblically speaking, forgiveness means that God has reconciled his covenant with his people. That's forgiveness. Okay. We could and probably should have a New Year's party on the first night of this month, which in our case is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at not here on YouTube, but on the other thing that we do before YouTube. Those of you who are part of this congregation will know exactly what I'm talking about. It won't last very long. We haven't worked it all out, but we're going to make some noise and say hello and welcome in the very first day of the new year as per God Almighty. Okay, hub. This is not a biblically mandated party. So if you stay up late, you're still going to have to get yourself out of bed and go to work unless you've, set something up prior. And I did tell you about this last week, so you can't blame me if you didn't have enough time. Just saying. Since this celebration is not mandated by God, the celebration could be bumped to the nearest Saturday night, but why celebrate it if you're not going to celebrate it on the right night? Anyway, whatever. But you won't get in any trouble with God because God didn't mandate a party on that night. Just saying. All right. Now, the procedure for the lamb. On the 10th day, remember, tomorrow at sundown is the first day. On the 10th day of Aviv, you should procure a lamb or lambs, small or large enough to feed your family and all who intend to eat the Pesach meal. Exodus 12:3, by the way. If the members of an observant household are too few to eat an entire lamb, they shall share one with, whoever they get together with. Cost included, you do have to pay for your meal. You got to share it with your neighbors. Now, you remember, biblically speaking, a neighbor is someone who lives the same Torah observant lifestyle. That is your neighbor. That's Exodus 12:4, by the way. Requirements for the lamb: it must be a male, no older than 1 year, without sickness, without sores or injuries of any kind. All of that, a lamb taken from a herd of sheep and goats. All of that stuff I just said comes from Exodus 12:5. Now, the care for that lamb, every observant family who procured the lamb is responsible for the care of that lamb until the 14th day of Aviv. Now, if you're doing this as a group and one person in that group is literally taking care of, a lamb or two or three, that's okay, because you as a group have obviously made an agreement with this one of the people in your group who's offered to take care of these lamb, because maybe he has some land enough to that they can graze on grass and have a good time and not be chased off by wolves and whatnot. That's perfectly fine. So if you're eating your meal with your synagogue, somebody in that synagogue has to care for that lamb. In our case, that'd be us. We're the ones picking it up, and it'll be here. You don't have to worry about it. I do want to make a couple of acknowledgments. The feast, all of them, not just this one, they all belong to God. These are not the feast of the Jews, as they were called in the 2nd century by Jews and others. Why would they say that God's feast belonged to the Jews? Well, that was the outside influences who looked upon the Jews as very peculiar, because they did this Passover thing, they did this Sukkot thing, and all these other things, and so they called them the feast of the Jews, because the Jews were the only ones doing it. But God said they belong to Him. Pesach and matzot, He said it specifically in Exodus 12:14 and Leviticus 23:4, if you want to look it up. God said these belong to Him. Now, this feast is eternal. God said, you shall observe the feast of Pesach/Matzot forever. Exodus 12:14, 12:17, 12:24, 12:25, 13:10, and even in Deuteronomy 16:3. So it's not supposed to stop when the temple gets destroyed. It's not supposed to stop when there are no temple priests, because the temple was destroyed. Is not supposed to ever change because of any reasons either, right? This is how we celebrate it, when we celebrate it, all according to the mouth of God. It was spoken by God and written down by Moshe. Now, why we celebrate on this day, I just said, we all celebrate the Pesach on this day because it is the anniversary of the day that our God led our forefathers, the children of Yisrael, out of Mitzrayim. Deuteronomy 16:1, if you want to look it up. The place of sacrifice. Now, the lamb must be sacrificed at the place where God's name, His authority, what is that? The Torah dwells. Anytime they say name, they're talking about the authority. The authority that God has over us is called the Torah. Not Torah. That's a Japanese word. Okay, but Torah is the Hebrew word. So wherever the Torah dwells, that's going to be the place. The temple or the synagogue will be the most likely place. Deuteronomy 16:2, 16:6, 16:7. We are not allowed to sacrifice the Pesach lamb in our homes or any property that we own, because it says within our gates. That's anything that we own. Deuteronomy 16:5. Well, Rob, what about you guys cooking there where you live? Our synagogue is sitting on the land that we live in. So this is where I'm sitting right now, is the place where the Torah dwells. This is the place where it is taught. So we kind of got stuck between a rock and a hard spot on that one. Okay. Of the firstborn males, all firstborn males, human and animal, are to be sanctified on the first day of Pesach. So if you're a farmer, rancher, whatever, somebody who has animals that are born on your property, if any of them were born on your property this past year, the 14th of Aviv, what day does that happen? It's April something. No, it's April 12th. It is, in fact, April 12th. It starts when the sun goes down. So this year on April 12th, after the sun goes down, if you've had these animals, these male animals, they're firstborn, you're supposed to make an offering for them. Exodus 13:2, 13:12. Now, every firstborn donkey will be redeemed with a lamb. This means that a donation of a spotless lamb less than 1 year old, or the equivalent monetary price of lamb. Please do not send a live lamb to my property. We cannot afford to feed one. And I'm not real sure there's enough grass around here to keep one fed. So if you're sending it here, send the money. I wouldn't normally say something like that, but we cannot afford a lamb. Sorry. But that offering must be made to your synagogue, or of course at the temple if it's standing, which it's not. If a person does not want to redeem the donkey, God says, break its neck. What? You guys have to understand, that is a Hebrew idiom. It means if you break the neck of a donkey, it has to become a pet. It cannot be a working animal. Break the neck means that it has to be a pet. And everyone that was there at Sinai that day knew that. Okay. But he went on to say, and we're in Exodus 13:3, the firstborn males of humans must be redeemed. The firstborn male of humans must be redeemed. So you have to, if you're, if you have a firstborn male born to you this year, the 12th after sundown, you need to be making a donation for that son of yours. Now, I don't personally know anyone amongst us who had a firstborn male this year, but if you're out there, you better do it. And if you don't know how much it is, just let me know and I'll send you to the verse. I didn't happen to write it down because it's a certain number of shekels. I don't remember. The Pesach meal cannot be moved. The Pesach must be eaten in one place. It cannot be taken from one place and eaten at the other. You can't cook it over at Joe Schmo's house and go over to Rhonda Belanda's house and eat the meal. It has to all stay in the same place. Exodus 12:46. I like Rhonda Belanda. I wish I could. I know I won't remember that tomorrow. Do not break the bones. We cannot break the bones of the lamb. Exodus 12:46. He keeps all his bones. Not one of them will be broken. That's from Psalm 34:20. And it also says that in the New Testament. For these things happen, fulfilling the ketub, the writing. And then here's the quote. He keeps all his bones, not one of them will be broken. And that's in John 19:36. Found that in both sides of the book. I'm starting to wonder if maybe Jews wrote the other side. Yeah, they did. Just saying. Okay. No congregation is exempt, which means no congregant is exempt. Every edah, every synagogue, as they're called today, in Yisrael must celebrate the Pesach, Exodus 12:47. I should explain that in also, they've added a bait to this word. It can be in Yisrael or it can mean with Yisrael. In this case, in either way you look at it, it means both of those things mean the same thing. So if you are living according to God's law, it makes absolutely no difference where you are in the entire world. You are in, or maybe in English, it makes more sense to say you are with Israel. I hope you get that. Those who cannot eat the Pesach. No one who is uncircumcised and non-Torah observant, they call him a foreigner for some reason. No one that's one of those two things or both may eat the Pesach. Exodus 12:43. Neither a hired nor a purchased servant. Now remember, these are people who are being paid. It sounds like the slavery thing has nothing to do with slavery. These are people who are hired and working for you, and it's assumed living with you. No one like that is allowed to eat the Pesach unless they've been circumcised. So now that's in Exodus 12:44 and 45. No uncircumcised male shall eat the Pesach. No uncircumcised male may eat the Pesach. Exodus 12:48. Pretty sure okay. I will get back to this. There's certainly some questions that have come up this year about that. Stay with me. Outsiders who can eat the Pesach, who may. If an uncircumcised and non-observant male lives among you and wants to eat the Pesach, he, his sons, and his servants, again, people he pays who apparently live with him, of his household, like a maid or a driver or a gardener, they live on your property. Those are the servants. Must all be circumcised. He can't just circumcise himself and say, okie dokie. No, everybody in his whole family has to be circumcised. So God's pretty serious about this circumcising thing, isn't he? Jews and converts must celebrate Pesach the same way. You don't have this upper tier Pesach celebration for the Jews and this lower tier Pesach celebration for those Gentiles. Nope. The same way for either. Now, here's what I want to get back to, and this is very important. Uncircumcised men cannot eat. They cannot eat the Pesach lamb. They can't eat the lamb. However, if that person wants to live according to God's law, he must celebrate the Pesach. There was an argument about this in the New Testament letters, well, kind of like this, and it got so completely turned upside down that the Christians decided no one needed to be circumcised anymore. They could eat pork as much as they wanted to, and then that wasn't bad enough. The Jews started eating chicken instead of lamb. Holy cow! Okay, there was a group of men who were on their way to celebrate the Pesach. This is while Moshe and all of them are still living in the wilderness, right? And on the way there, they stumbled over a dead body. I'm talking, they landed on that dead body, right? Now they're unclean. And they went directly to Moshe and said, we're unclean. We touched the dead body. Do we celebrate the Pesach or not? And Moshe didn't know the answer to it. So he went and grabbed the oral law and looked through that. Oh, no, he didn't do that. He went to God, and God said, they must celebrate the Pesach. Now, you can't get more unclean than landing on top of a dead body in the purity laws that God gave us. That's as unclean as you can possibly get. And God still said you must celebrate the Pesach. Because one, your uncleanness will not jump on to somebody else. It just won't happen. So Moshe didn't become unclean. And then all of those people had to go and sacrifice the lamb and all that kind of stuff, because back then there was only one place you could go to celebrate Pesach, and that was in the camp. There was no other place where God's authority existed. Beyond that, that was it. So the lesson here is that clean, unclean, that does not matter. You have to celebrate the Pesach. Now, if you mess up and you eat leaven, we haven't gotten to that yet, but if you mess up and you eat leaven, now you have to cut yourself off from the people. They're not supposed to somehow know what you did when you weren't around. You're the one that knows. That's between you and God, and you'd better do it right, because don't claim to God and everybody else that you live according to his law and then do something like that and then act like you're not unclean and go hang out with all the people of God. Don't do that. That will cost you dearly. So we have to celebrate. So let's say you're one of these guys that you want to celebrate. It was the non-Torah observant, and what was the other one? Uncircumcised or non-Torah observant, right? Let's say you're one of those. You want to eat the Pesach. Now, if you're living there with somebody, it's very obvious that unless your whole household gets circumcised and everyone that works for you gets circumcised or leaves and doesn't come back, because you can't play with God like that. You couldn't eat the Pesach. Eat. You could not eat the Pesach. So are you beginning to get here that, yeah, you're supposed to celebrate the Pesach? Now, as long as you have not eaten unleavened bread, if your group is getting together doing something, you're supposed to be a part of that. Now, some of you live so far away that, it's not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump from New York to southern Texas, right? Well, you get together with us on the internet. Others who live close enough to make the trip, that's a different story, right? But even then, that's that's subjective. If you live within 30 miles, I would say, sure, you probably ought to be here. If you live within an hour or two, that's where it starts to get gray. And when you get up to 5 or 6 hours, good Lord, you could live in the same state and be almost 20 hours apart in this place. This is a huge state. So, but we do it one way or the other. You either get here physically or you get here via the internet. And that's how you can be a part of that. But one thing you had better not do on Pesach is eat lamb. I don't care if you're at home by yourself, don't eat lamb. Go get you some chicken or I don't know, whatever it is you eat, as long as it's not something like pork or shrimp or something like that. We're Torah observant. We don't eat unclean meat. It needs to be clean. And if you're going to have some kind of bread with it, make sure it doesn't have leaven in it. Just throwing that out there. You don't want to do that during the Pesach. So if you're either non-Torah observant or you're uncircumcised and you want to come to the celebration, you want to be a part of it, that you can do. Just don't eat the lamb. If you're celebrating via the internet, and that's the case with you, don't eat the lamb. Find something else to eat. Otherwise, though, everything else is fine. There's no reason why you can't be a part of it. In fact, you're commanded to be a part of it. All right. You have two Pesach. There's the first and the second, of course. Sorry, my beard got hung on something. The date of the Pesach / Matzot, that's two celebrations that just run into each other. And on the 14th day of Aviv is the Pesach. And then the very next day is the Matzot. But they feel like the same thing because you eat Matzot on the Pesach. So it all kind of goes together. Now, on the 14th, we call a holy assembly, which is on the first day, that is the first day of the actual feast. 14th of Aviv, which is Saturday the 12th this year of April, begins at sundown. And there's two sundowns. I should remind you of that. There's first sundown, which is and this is why some people get the New Testament thing over when Yeshua died on the cross and rose from the dead and all that. They get this mixed up because they don't know what the first and the second sundowns are. In this case, on Pesach, when the sun goes over the horizon, but it's still light outside, that's called first sundown. And that's when the food should begin to be cooked. The second sundown is when it completely turns dark. You have first and second sundown. That's all part of the Bible. That's part of the language, the custom, the culture that comes from the Bible. We have a first and a second sundown. We have a first and a second sunrise. Don't you see light before you see the sun? Anyway, so we call a holy assembly, And we start it before sundown, but it's not over until long after sundown. So the assembly happens on the 14th day like it's supposed to. Now, on that day and the next, no, well, we would think of it as the next day because it starts after the sun goes down, and as soon as the sun comes up, you cannot do occupational work. None of it can be done during the holy assemblies beyond that, which is necessary for preparing food. You can find that in Exodus 12:16, and you can find it in Leviticus 23:7. We have to stay up all night long. What? No, we don't. You have to stay out of your own house all night long. Remember, it begins at sundown, and it's second, generally, I think what we've been doing is after the meal has been eaten, everybody leaves the house and doesn't return if they live in that house. You can't do it. Deuteronomy 16:7, look it up. You can't return until the sun comes up. So that means that because our synagogue is here and we have our celebration here, Donna and I cannot sleep in our home here that night. Anybody else that comes can. That's not off limits because this isn't your house. You don't live here. You guys hopefully follow that. You have to bring an offering because God said you will not come to Pesach without an offering. Deuteronomy 16:16. Don't do it. Bring something. There's no set amount. It's whatever's on your heart at that moment. There is a set amount if you've had a donkey that you want to be a working donkey, or if you've had a firstborn son, and those are separate. That's not the offering. You don't get out of paying the offering just because you had to pay for something else. God does not work that way. All right, so on that same night, you have to remove all leaven. You take all the leaven from your house on the 14th day at evening until the 21st day at evening. Exodus 12:15 and Exodus 12:19 and 13:7. You do not eat anything leavened during the Pesach or Matzot. So once that sun goes down, the leaven needs to be taken out of your house, and the leaven cannot be eaten by you from that point until the holiday is over. You're not to be seen with leavening. You can't even be seen with it. No leaven will be found in all the places you dwell and are under your authority, your territory. For 7 whole days, unleavened bread is called the bread of affliction because it is the bread that reminds us of the affliction of Mitzrayim. That came directly from Deuteronomy 16:3. I didn't just make that up. I did. Huh? Oh, I missed one. Yeah. You shall have a barbecue every day of the feast. Now, the first day on the 14th, that's the lamb. And it's a barbecue. You can't boil it. You can't boil it, broil it. Well, it has to be cooked over an open fire. So that starts on the 14th. And the whole time that feast is going, every single day, you have to cook something over an open fire, and it has to be meat. It cannot be chestnuts. Some of you will get that. Okay. Now, the non-compliant have to be cut off, and they have to cut off themselves. Everyone who eats leaven during the feast, whether born or in Israel or born with Yisrael or not, whether you're born in Israel or not, whether you're with Israel or not, wouldn't make any sense. So this is born in Israel or not. You are to be cut off from Israel until the feast is over. Exodus 12:15, Exodus 12:19. Also, if a man is clean during the first Pesach and does not celebrate it, he is to be cut off from Israel. So we need to know, well, what is it to be cut off from Israel? You can't talk to your brothers and sisters. Now, you have to understand that being cut off from Israel does not mean that you now cannot speak to your wife and children in your own home during the Passover holidays. No, that doesn't work that way. But if you're online listening in and somebody starts trying to type and talk to you, what you do is type one word, unclean, and hit enter and leave it at that. If you're trying to talk to somebody and you've noticed that the only thing they've said is unclean, leave them alone. You don't say, well, what'd you do? Did you eat some leaven? What? Tell me what happened. No. They're not allowed to talk to you, and you're not allowed to talk to them. The only way that we can know that you're unclean is if you let us know that you're unclean. And so if somebody's not talking in the chat or somebody's not showing up in the synagogue, just assume, especially if it's during Passover, just assume they're unclean and leave them alone. And if you're unclean, don't go around calling your rabbi, hey, rabbi, I'm unclean. What should I do? Don't do that to me. You're bringing your sin in my house and over my phone, trying to talk to me when you're not allowed to? Leave me out of it. Just saying. Because I can't tell you how many people have done that to me. So if you're clean and you're able to celebrate the Pesach, according to Numbers 9:13, you have to. And if you don't, you cut yourself off from Israel for the whole Passover celebration. Now, also on the Pesach, we're supposed to eat matzot. It's unleavened bread, by the way, each night from the 14th until the 21st day of Aviv, as a reminder that God brought us out of Mitzrayim quickly. Exodus 12, 15, 12, 18, 12, 20, 13, 6, Leviticus 23, 6, Deuteronomy 16, 3, Deuteronomy 16, 8. God's pretty serious about us eating unleavened bread for a whole week. Do it. Now, it doesn't say you have to eat a whole loaf every day. It doesn't say anything about how much you have to eat, but you do have to eat some every day. The sacrifice of the lamb. The lamb for each observant family will be killed as the sun is going down on the 14th day of Aviv, which is the anniversary of the night that God delivered his children out of Egypt. Now, the thing about the blood on the doorpost, I'll tell you right up front, that was a one-time thing. But we need to talk about it because something changed, and it's very important to us. In Exodus 12:22, it told us that we were supposed to drain the blood of the lamb into a basin, in a bucket. Dip a basting brush in the blood, that's in the basin, and paint the blood on the lintel and both sides of the posts. Exodus 12:7 and 12:22. Once the blood was applied to the doorposts and lintel, no one was allowed to leave their home until after the sun came up the next morning. Exodus 12:22. The blood was placed on the door only on the night of the first Pesach to physically keep the destroyer from killing the firstborn among God's children. Again, it was a one-time thing. So, I'm looking for that thing. I don't remember where it was, but I've already mentioned it, and I'm pretty sure I gave you the verse when I said it. But remember, I said we had to stay out of our house all night long. On the first Pesach, all of the Jews had to paint the blood on their door, go inside, close the door, and not come back out, because they had not yet been redeemed. They had not yet been reconciled to God. They hadn't even left Egypt at that point. So God is preparing to fully enter into his covenant with his people. And he had promised from Abraham all the way down that the day would come when that would happen. And this was the night prior to that happening. So everybody was supposed to stay locked inside their homes. Well, now, after Sinai, God fully entered into his covenant with his people. So we don't go inside our homes and close the doors and stay in the rest of the night. We do the opposite. Why? Because our God reigns. Our Redeemer has restored our covenant with us. Don't go back in your house. Okay, and the verses on eating the meal. Roast the lamb in fire. Remember, I spoke of that earlier. You can't boil it. You can't. Anyway, roast the lamb in fire. That means cook it over an open fire. Exodus 12:9, Deuteronomy 16:7. It says, do not eat it raw. Lots of people like to eat their lamb raw. We're not allowed to do that on Pesach or any other time, because we're not allowed to eat anything with blood in it. You have to cook your meat. So don't eat it raw. That's Exodus 12:9. Do not eat it boiled in water. I said 2:9, 12:9. We're still in 12:9. Cook the head, legs, and body together. Exodus 12:9. Okay, understand that is a Hebrew idiom. We aren't supposed to cook all of that together. That's an idiom. That just meant that all of the parts that are cut off the lamb for the purpose of eating that lamb meat was supposed to be cooked together at the same time. That's why they said the head, the legs, and body. It's everything that you're going to cook from that lamb needs to be cooked at the same time. That is how that was said in those days. Now, if we back up one verse, we have eat the lamb at night. Well, you can't start cooking it until the sun goes down. So That sounds good. Eat it with bitter herbs. It also says in 12:11 to wear a belt on your hips when you eat it, wear shoes on your feet when you eat it, a staff in one hand while you eat it, and eat it in a hurry. This whole idea of having a 2 hour long meal and, somebody at the end of the table reading the Haggadah, that is not of God. And I don't care who tells you that that's Jewish. It's not. It's pagan. Don't eat slow. Don't drag that meal out. Eat your food fast. Now, if I get up there and start rambling on, eat your food fast, okay? Now, and this is the fun part. Those of you who don't get to come and be a part of this, you miss out on this. That's a shame, but it's a lot of effort to be dragging all the TVs and stuff out into the yard so that we can be by the fire, blah, blah, blah. If you want to come up here and set all that up so everybody else can see it, you're more than welcome to it, but you better know how to put it back together when you leave. Don't you leave that to me. Anyway, here's what I'm going to tell you. Now, after the meal it has been eaten and everybody's kind of calmed down, well, the Bible says that we're supposed to burn the leftover lamb in fire so that no part of the lamb's flesh, the flesh. He didn't say a thing about the bones. So that no part of the flesh will remain until the morning. Exodus 12:10 and Deuteronomy 16:4. Don't worry about there being leftover bones. You got to cook off, you got to throw all of that stuff in the fire. And at that point, I will tell you why if you're here. Now, if for some legitimate reason you can't celebrate with us on the 12th this year, 1 month later, if you set it up with me far enough in advance, I can take you through what we call the second Holy Assembly. Exodus 12:16, 13:6, Leviticus 23:8, Deuteronomy 16:8. And then talks about no occupational work that next day. That's in Leviticus 23:8 and Deuteronomy 16:18. So yes, Constantine, we do celebrate Pesach 2 times a year. Now, if your organization's as small as ours, maybe not every year, but we've had to do that for some people. If a person is not clean during Pesach according to the laws of purity, no, that's not right. If a person is on a long journey and cannot celebrate the Pesach, that person is supposed to celebrate it 1 month later in exactly the same way. Numbers 9, verses 6 through 12. Wow, I haven't been watching the clock at all. Just now saw the time. Woo! Yeah. So, of the ceremony itself, we are to teach our children to ask the following question. Ma ha avodah hazot. Ma ha avodah hazot. I broke it up by a syllable and drug it out. What's it mean? What is this service? Exodus 12:26 and 13:14. What is this? What does it mean? What's going on, Pops? And then we're supposed to give our children the following answer. This day is a day to remember. It's a memorial, a day to remember. Exodus 12:14. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in chapter 13. Let's see, whereabouts does that start? Basically from 12:14 through 13:22. You can go through that. We will be going through that during the meal. Now, one last thing. If you become unclean, you've eaten leaven during the Pesach, it is never the responsibility of your rabbi, your synagogue, or any other Jew to monitor your sin. This is your responsibility. If you become unclean, you must cut yourself off. In other words, you must separate yourself from Israel. To cut yourself off from Israel, you must stop talking, texting, emailing, phoning, video chatting, touching, and or interacting with anyone and everyone you know who is with Israel. And in this case, has eaten the Pesach. That's very important. It is acceptable to send an electronic message to warn people that you are unclean. However, it can only say unclean. You cannot have a conversation with anyone with Israel for any reason. No questions, no explanations, no answers. Don't ask them. If someone, or, we don't ask you, you don't ask us. Don't ask, don't tell. Anyway, if someone sends you a message, get the message. Don't start asking for details. And that's the rule over having leaven after the Pesach began. And it happens. Don't worry too much about it, because the punishment for having leaven during the Pesach is that you cannot hang out with your brothers until the Pesach is over. So if this happens the night before the Pesach is over, the next day, it doesn't matter if you talk to anybody. That's the punishment. But there's also the knowing that you blew it again. So how do you fix it? You say, God forgive me in Jesus' name, amen. No, that don't have a thing to do with it. You do better next year. Don't do it next year. It may happen to you 2 or 3 years in a row, because first it was, I stopped and got a hamburger and wasn't even thinking about it. I did that once, very early on. Or it's, I found some leaven in the house. That'll make you that's makes you unclean and causes you to have to separate yourself from somebody. Those things happen. What do? You make it not happen. Write it down when you make mistakes like that. Put them on something that you read before Pesach starts every year, so that you can remember, okay, yeah, I did that. I want to do that again. I did that. I want to do that again. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. But that's all you do, is get back on the path. You separate yourself from people until it's over. And you have to stay on the path. You can't just go off and have unleavened this, that, and the other now because you messed it up. We'll have to wait till next year. No, you still have to celebrate, right? Except now you can't hang out with anybody to celebrate. But what does that mean? That means you still can't have leaven. So don't say, well, I messed up. I stopped and had pancakes this morning, so I'm just going to have a hamburger today at lunch. No. you're not being Torah observant in any way, shape, or form if you're having leaven after having messed up, right? I hope you guys get that. I'm out of time. Not used to that. No, I'm still over here. Shalom, shalom, everybody. Oh, that's this thing.
The blessing, Be'ivrit. Yavarecha Yahweh beyish meracha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha vihunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.